Look, Bumble knows you're exhausted by dating. All the must not take yourself too seriously and 6'1" since that matters. And what do I even say other than hey? Well, that's why they're introducing an all-new Bumble with exciting features to make compatibility easier, starting the chat better, and dating safer. They've changed, so you don't have to. Download the new Bumble now.
You were listening to a Pleasure podcast. For more from our sex podcast collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
Welcome back to Private Parts Unknown, a podcast about love and sexuality around the world. I'm Courtney Kosak, and today, privates, we are getting brutal. That is right. I am talking to Margo Steines, author of Brutalities, a love story, which is such a freaking good book. I got the recommendation from another writer, Amanda Monty, who I took a workshop from, and it was such a good recommendation. I gobbled this book right up. And then I was like, shit, I got to have Margo on the podcast. I feel like I have adjacent kind of issues as Margo. Not exact, but like we grew up in the same era. We're about the same age. And we've definitely had the same kind of cultural influences on our bodies, on our sexualities, and it was really interesting to talk to her after reading the book, just because y'all at home probably haven't read the book yet, which I highly recommend picking it up. I want to read a little description, so here we go. Quarantined in a southwestern desert city in the midst of her high-risk pregnancy, Margo Steines felt her life narrow around her growing body, compelling her to reckon with the violence entangled in its history. She was a professional dominatrix in New York City, a homestead farmer in a brutal relationship, a welder on a high-rise building crew, and a mixed martial arts enthusiast. Each of her many lives brought a new perspective on how power and masculinity coalesce and how far she could push her body toward the brink. With unflinching candor, Steines searches for the roots of her erstwhile attraction to pain while charting the complicated triumph of gentleness and love. Oh, you guys, it's so good. You should definitely order that right now. There is a link in the episode notes. So go ahead and order Brutalities, a love story. I think you will very much enjoy it if you are a reader. And I wanted to bring Margo on the show because there are so many relevant topics that we could talk about on the podcast. And we did. We talked about her experience as a dominatrix. We talked a little bit about ED and the culture that we grew up in and how that affected how we felt about our bodies. We talked about her stint as a high-rise welder and an abusive relationship. And then we also talked about pregnancy, which I am thinking about maybe having a baby. I am also 40, so I don't know how much longer that's going to be possible, but I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking real hard. And so I definitely asked Margo about that too. But I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. And here we go. Enjoy the interview.
Hi, I'm Margo Steines, and I am the author of Brutalities, a love story.
Some of the pain and compulsion in your book starts with ED, and same for me. Grew up in the 90s, and it was so much a part of the culture, and it's so different now. So I guess I would love to hear your perspective on that. Like, paint the picture of this culture that made us sick, and then how weird is it that, you know, I feel like the body confidence era is awesome, but it's so foreign to my experience growing up.
Yeah, I don't know how old you are, but I was born in 1982. And I have to say, in my home, like my family of origin, my parents and specifically my mom was like very sane and normal about all of these things, which is interesting. But the broader culture, and like I grew up in Manhattan, it was like when I was like hospitalized for anorexia, that was like the time that I looked acceptable in Manhattan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like people would tell me on the street that I looked great, you know, and I was like, I had like a feeding tube inserted the next day. That was normal. Skinny was a compliment. Being like muscular or thick in any way. And like, this is, I will say, like, this is a white perspective, but it was also like very much part of the dominant culture. You know, it was like Kate Moss was very in the media everywhere, and that was like the aspirational body. And there was only one body that you were allowed to have, and it was that one. And, you know, as a young person, like you receive this shit like a sponge. It's not like someone sat me down and said something harmful to me. It's like it came from everywhere. And, you know, I, at a young age, realized how much power I had over my own body and that I could make it what I wanted. And I didn't have any sense of consequence about any of that. So I just wanted to do that. And then, you know, it like metastasizes into a whole psychological disorder. But I think we can't blame it all on the culture, but I do think a lot of it.
Yeah, no, it was huge. It's like so bizarre now to see sometimes they'll bring back certain tabloid covers or whatever of like the times we thought Jessica Simpson was fat. And it's like, oh my God, no wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being like probably like 9 years old and like my friend was on the diet that her mother had put her on, you know, that shit was very normal. And it was like for her health, you know, but it's like, was it, or was it to make her acceptable in a way that was legible to the dominant culture?
Yeah. Yeah. No. And we didn't see, I mean, like Lena Dunham, what a inspiration. Just like you can be a big woman and be successful. I feel like that wasn't even really a possibility at the time.
And she's like not even that big. That's like the other
I know.
Yeah. Just like I think like the range of bodies that we're allowed to see. And I think social media has actually, for all of its harms, been good for that, because you see people in their bodies, like, you know, and in New York, growing up in New York, you see everyone out on the street. But, you know, now I live in a car culture and like you don't see people that much. And, you know, seeing people like being fit at all sizes and all that, like that was not around.
Okay. So I have always wanted to be a dom. It is problematic that, you know, you got recruited at 17, but I totally understand like the yes of it. If somebody would have tried to recruit me at 17, I would have also been like, yes. So tell us about that experience. And yeah, then I want to do a like then versus now.
Well, I mean, I think part of my problem was that I just like always felt a inflated sense of my own adulthood from like a pretty young age. You know, who knows why, a lot of reasons. But so it wasn't that I didn't know it was like a stupid and reckless thing to do. I was like, this is the choice I'm making, you know? And so I all of a sudden was like making a lot of money. You know, now I'm like looking back, I'm like, was it a lot of money? It was definitely not as much money as I should have been getting. But it was like a lot of cash, you know, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can get an apartment. I can, you know, leave my parents' home where I am not, you know, sort of allowed to act in the ways that I want to act. And, you know, for me, the work itself initially was secondary to like the money and the freedom. And I still, you know, like you said, like I see the problematic and harmful parts of like how I entered the industry. But for me, sex work brought me a lot of freedom. And that doesn't mean that it didn't also have harms, but there was a lot of freedom attached to it. And I got to live as I pleased. And, you know, big picture of my life, that was good for me because I got to flame out faster and like get myself together a little faster. But, you know, I met this man in the course of my work there who, you know, the man in the book. And then I sort of started getting into that world in my own life in a very confusing way. But initially it was really just about like, you know, like I think if someone had recruited me to like, I don't know, be like a high-end like booster, like I would have done that too. Like I just like,
or like run drugs or something, like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, totally. Like I'll eat some heroin, like that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like the way that we talk about sex work has changed so much probably from when you were doing from when you started. So yeah, what is your take on like sex work then versus now? Because, I have an OnlyFans. I never have to interact with my fans
Yeah.
on like a physical level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of things have changed. I think the politicization of sex work, and even that we use that language, like that is new in my lifetime. It was, politicized inside small circles of advocacy, but, they were very niche and no one that wasn't personally affected really gave a shit. It was not a cool thing to be doing when I was doing it.
Right.
Like in my little circle of like bartenders and drug addicts, it was a little cool. But like once you left, it was like, all of the words that we use for sex workers, like all the pejorative words, those were just like descriptive words. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I, for whatever reason, like from fairly early on, I was like pretty open and out as a sex worker. And what that did was that it defined my communities as people who were like also involved in, like marginal shit. And there were only so many spaces you could live in if you were doing that work and being open about it, right? And a lot of people that I worked with were closeted and worked in secret and all of that. And now it's like, I think the barrier to entry has changed a lot because you don't need to like divest from having like a normal life. Like you can do online sex work and like have it as a side hustle. And unless you're like a teacher, it doesn't really have to affect your life in any other way. And, with technology, like you can do it anonymously in different ways, like da, da, da. And then also like with the advent of technology, there's so much terrifying stuff around like border control, the way that sex work is policed using AI and technology and like all of this. So like, it's gotten safer and more accepted. And also, the carceral system has employed all these new technologies to also like make it dangerous in new ways. So I don't know if it's gotten like broadly safer. And I think it depends a lot on like your privilege and how you're working.
Totally. You talk a little bit in the book about, even being a dominatrix is like a privileged level of sex work. And I do have the same kind of feeling about, you talk about being out about sex work and like that is part of making it more acceptable. And so even though it is a privileged level of sex work, you are taking that position and being out about it. So hopefully it does make the harder levels, more accepted as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that like if as many people who can afford whatever that means to you to talk about it would do that, like I do think that that would move the needle in a good direction for people who can't, for reasons of various marginalization, talk about what they're doing. And the work I did was like quasi legal, where it wasn't totally illegal. Like a lot of the stuff I actually did was, but the premise of my business wasn't, which is like not true for a lot of people. And that changes the way you can be in public about it.
And even like the shift of the language, like you were talking about, like that's a part of it too. Yeah. So at the same kind of time in the book, there's this toxic relationship. And I've had my own series of toxic relationships. How do you think about it now, as like a healthier adult? What would you tell your younger self? And like, do you think that would have made a difference?
I mean, like my full answer is like, stay away from the bad man. But no, I mean, I don't know. I think it's one of the things that brings me a lot of peace is like the idea that like we can't go back and change little bits of our lives without changing everything. And like I like what I have now where I'm at. And, my ex brought a lot of harm into my life, and also like he brought a lot of things that were good into it. Like it was a mixed bag. Do you know what I mean? And I also think like I would absolutely have dated someone else who was harmful, perhaps in like more treacherous ways if I had not dated him. I do sometimes wish that I had been able to extricate myself sooner, because that my life didn't start until like he left me, and I just wish I could have some more time sometimes, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So, the high-rise welding, oh my God, for me, the hard part would for sure be the fear of heights, but that was not your issue. Just tell us, like what inspired you to go into this and then a little bit about your experience doing it.
Well, so I had only ever been a sex worker and like a failed waitress. And my boyfriend, this guy, he was just really embarrassed of me and really unkind about, he didn't like how I looked in public, not how I looked, but like how I presented. Like he didn't like introducing like his girlfriend, but in his words, like the hooker. So I was like, I want him to take me seriously. I want him to be impressed with me. I want him to be proud of me. Like total, toxic. Like I projected him as a father figure, all of that shit. And he was a steel contractor, very successful, and like did it his own way. Very talented, and I respected what he did a lot, but really it was just like I wanted him to think that I was acceptable. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that too. And I liked also the idea of being like the least likely person to do that work and be good at that work. So I went and I did that, and I did it for 10 years.
That's insane.
Yeah, now I'm like, ooh, that was really a choice. And like I loved being a welder, and after I got trained and got good at it, it wasn't, about him anymore. There was a lot that I liked about it, but it was also like I was not using, we all get embedded with like some skills in this life, and I was not using the ones that I have. I was like trying to force myself to have ones that I made, and also just it is a demanding job in a way that, now that I work in this office in my jammies, I'm like, oh, this is a lot nicer in a lot of ways. And, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated this if I hadn't done that. But, physical labor is a different kind of life.
Yeah. And it sounds like you were working with like exclusively men.
Yeah.
The entire time, basically.
Yeah. Like here or there, I would have like one or two female colleagues. But it was like, I know all their names by heart. There were so few of them.
So tell us about the guys. A mixed bag.
Yeah, mixed bag. So I started working at this place that was, oh my God, it is still like the coolest place I've ever been. They make the most beautiful bespoke metal work, architectural metal work. And all the guys I went to Pat, which is like an art school in Brooklyn, and they were just like cool as shit. They were artisans before that was like a hipster thing, and we worked in the Navy Yard before it was a hipster place. And I just fucking loved it. And they mentored me a lot. And one person in particular who I'm still close friends with, he really taught me how to weld and, helped me become employable. And then I got a union book, which I had to take because it was like actually paid a living wage, which like I never thought I would be able to do without being naked in some way, And all of a sudden I was making like grown-up money. But I was working on these big crews of, guys that like I came to find community with, but on first impression, like they're pretty intimidating. They're like the guys that are hooting at you from behind the scaffolding on the street, and I was like, hi, like I'm here. And, some of them were very kind to me. A lot of them were not very pleased that I was there and expressed that in different ways. It was like generally a very uncomfortable work environment for me. It's like you walk into work and there's 3,000 men lined up on the street. Like just, that's a hard feeling. And I'm sensitive and very attuned to like what people are thinking about me. And that's a hard thing. And then like the work is like, oh, also, and then you have to go like walk out on the fucking steel and like you're 20 stories up, which was honestly the least of my concerns. I was so afraid of being embarrassed and of these men that I was like frivolous and in the way.
Oh my goodness. So intense. Listen, privates, nothing gives me naked confidence like smelling good. Okay? I just like to know that I'm not stinky. I mean, that is such an easy source of insecurity. So if I'm smelling good, my confidence is through the roof. And that is why I love Lumi Whole Body Deodorant. Unlike certain other deodorants, Lumi is powered by mandelic acid to deliver outrageous 72-hour odor control everywhere from your pits to your feet and yes, even your privates. In fact, it was patients' concerns about private part odor that originally inspired the OBGYN who invented Lumi. Flash forward 6 years and her game-changing whole-body deodorant has now earned over 300,000 5-star reviews from people like me who love feeling confident from head to toe. And Lumi knows how to woo my Private Parts Unknown listeners because they are offering a special offer to new customers who get 15% off all Lumi products with the exclusive Private Parts Unknown code and link. So just use code PPU at lumideodorant.com. That is LUMEDEODORANT.com. I freaking love Lumi. It really has been a game changer for me because I am looking for something paraben free. I'm looking for something baking soda free. I am looking for something pH balanced for safe use below the belt. Lumi is check, check, check. They have an amazing variety of fresh, bright scents like clean tangerine, lavender sage, or toasted coconut. My two favorites are clean tangerine and toasted coconut. I love them, love them, love them. And Lumi's new starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash and deodorant wipes, which are amazing if you're on the go, for travel, for just staying fresh, and free shipping. So as a special offer for Private Parts Unknown listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with the exclusive PPU code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. So use code PPU for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That is code PPU at LUMEDEODORANT.com. Privates, you gotta head over to Lumi because they will keep you fresh. So fresh. Hey, privates with penises, I am talking to you. Okay, if you get in your head when it comes to having sex, or maybe your penis doesn't act the way you want it to, then I have a solution for you. A penis pump, specifically from Bathmate. Now listen, hear me out. Penis pumps might sound funny, but they are actually an incredible tool to help you attain harder erections when you want them, and more intense orgasms. And they can even help you last longer. Bathmate is the world's best-selling penis pump for a reason. With over 1 million satisfied men and even more satisfied partners, Bathmate harnesses the power of water through a hydraulic vacuum, acting as a secondary pump to your heart to draw blood safely into the penis. These are more effective and comfortable than traditional air pumps. It's like a workout for your cock. Bathmate helps flush toxins and maintain tissue health, providing a safe, effective way to exercise an area neglected in the gym. While the user will feel an immediate benefit after using Bathmate, the greatest benefit is typically felt after 2 weeks of regular use. And you can rest assured in trying Bathmate out because there is a 100% money-back guarantee. So confident in the benefits of the product, Bathmate offers a 60-day 100% money-back guarantee starting from the day the product lands on your doorstep. So try it out, and if you're not satisfied, they'll send you a full refund. So how do you use it? Good question. Well, Bathmate is the world's only FDA-regulated hydro pump. So you use it in water. The hydro pump lends itself to use as part of your daily wash routine. So you can do it in the privacy of a bath or shower. You simply fill the Bathmate with warm water, you slide your penis in and compress the gator against the pelvis. Or if you have the Hydro Extreme, you can use the handball attachment that comes with that. And basically this induces a vacuum. And you leave the Bathmate on for about 3 minutes and then you release the valve. Recommended use is between 3 to 5 times per week. And while Bathmate can be used like a conventional pump for sexual spontaneity, the main intention of Bathmate is the private training aid, lending itself to discretion. This device is not a sex toy and does not directly stimulate pleasure, but it might help you have more fun in the bedroom. And right now, Bathmate is offering our listeners 10% off their first order when you go to bathmatedirect.com/private parts. That is Bathmate, BATHMATE direct.com/private parts to get 10% off your first order. Again, bathmatedirect.com/private parts. There is a link in our episode description to make it super handy, and have fun pumping those penises, privates. Okay, so there's so much other good stuff in the book. Everyone should read it. I want to talk to you about pregnancy in specific. I am considering, so I am asking everyone I know about their experience. So tell me about yours, like where you were at going into it and what you loved, what you hated, what you found surprising.
I wanted to be pregnant for a very long time. I had a combination of like infertility and not the right partner for a very long time. And when I met my partner, almost right away, I was like, okay, like it's time. I really wanted to be with him. I loved being pregnant. I was pregnant during the pandemic. That made it very, very hard. No one of my friends and family even saw me the entire time. I remained devastated about that. But pregnancy itself, like, it really changed and revealed a lot about the way I lived with my own body. Because once it wasn't like just like an object of presentation of self, and once it was like something that someone else needed, I realized how differently I cared for it, and how, like, even in, recovery from all the various things that I've recovered from, like, I still had treated myself pretty brutally most of the time. So that was, not always comfortable, but like definitely good information. And then it's just like, it's so fucking wild. It's like something is growing inside of you, and weird stuff. Like, you get this line up your butt crack, like when the baby's about to come, just like, it's so strange. It's like your body is a science experiment, and some of it is really rough and horrible, and some of it is like miraculous, and it's like every day a new thing,
Was it triggery for the ED, or you were just like, no, I'm a vessel, like I'm gonna go with it?
Like a little bit. Like, I remember when they were like, I didn't gain enough weight, and they were kind of like hounding me about that, and there was something about that felt good, and I was like, that's not fucking normal, But no, it felt like I was briefly outside of like the system of standards for a human woman. Like, I didn't have to be that anymore. That was this other thing. And then like some of the changes I like I got big breasts for the first time in my life, and I was like, oh, I like these. I didn't know I would like these. I think afterwards is actually when it felt more like that, where I was like, oh, I'm just like a just sloppy, used up sack of a person. Like, that didn't feel good. And because it wasn't, I was no longer like, in service to the baby in the same way. It was just like, here I am with like the detritus of what I used to be. Yeah. So mixed bag.
Okay. So that is the terrifying part for me. Tell me about the identity shift, if you felt anything with that, or if it was all just totally welcome, and the like body stuff after.
I mean, I definitely didn't feel like I became like a mama in like the way that on the internet you're supposed to. Like, I was like, I just still felt very messy and very self-involved, and I didn't have a like women's skirt.
Oh, nice.
I didn't want one, But I definitely softened, like, just emotionally. Like, I feel much more affected by, when I witness suffering, it affects me in a way that it never used to. And like, I don't think I could watch Game of Thrones again, I think it would just make me upset. And I used to be like, I could watch anything and it never gave me a feeling, And then afterwards, I don't know, I had a pretty rough postpartum, so I don't think this is necessarily standard, but it was very difficult to like move into the space of like being a parent and then sort of recover, mostly because I didn't have any time, because I had to go back to work immediately. My partner had to go back to work immediately. I was like, doing emails with a laptop on my newborn's head, which was not my own personal failing. It's like a failing of this fucking culture. And when I read about people in Europe who get to take 6 months off and like bond with the baby, I'm like, oh, that would have been different for sure. But, we both have a small business, and my employer was not particularly humane, and that's how it went.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. So for the podcast, we went to Finland, and it's so different over there. It's like they give you a package of a crib and like everything you need, and they have not just maternity leave, but paternity leave. Like the system's so different.
Yeah.
And is so designed with the woman in mind. It made me really sad.
Yeah, I wish I could have had a different experience. And then like a lot of the work for me has just been letting go of that, because it was an unprecedented time.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like being a parent?
I do. Yeah, no, I'm super close with my kid, and they're the best. I have no regrets, though life is very hard, and like I can hold those things in, each hand at the same time. And I didn't have to change in a lot of the ways that I had feared or been warned about. Like I'm still myself, and I'm like petty and irreverent and all of the things that I've always been. And she and I just vibe,
Oh, I love that. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, I'm going to leave it at that then. So this is for the writers in the house, but tell us how the book got published.
I have a fantastic agent, and he sold it. That process was like pretty much out of my hand, like not out of my hands, but like he handled it.
Was it a full, or was it a book proposal?
No, it was a full. I was not like I was not willing, but like I had the whole manuscript, and the idea of owing somebody a book really stresses me out. Like I would rather.
Yeah.
And also it's like, I mean, I see the argument of like knowing how much money you're going to get, but like I keep my book money, like I don't live on that money. Do you know what I mean? Which is partly a privilege and partly hustle. But I don't ever want to like be making creative decisions based on like what I will get paid for it, I guess. So he sold the full manuscript, and then I had a great editor at Norton, and it took a really long time. I did not know it would take this long, and not for any reason. It was just like everything takes a long time. Every round of edits.
How long?
I have lost track of time altogether. Like the book came out in October 23, and I think he sold it in like maybe like early 22. I think that could be off by like a year. I don't know. But I had written it as my MFA thesis, and then I had a lot of like editing and building to do after that. So I did a lot of work on my own before the sale, and then it was kind of just like one step after the other once it was sold.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
And what are you working on now?
I am working on a book about milk that started with the writing that I was trying to do when my baby was new, and I didn't really have any time or any brain power, and I was just like making little notes on my phone. And then there was a formula shortage. My child was breastfed, but like once you feed a baby, you become very attuned to the fact that any baby anywhere might not have food. And I just got really interested also in these internet factions of moms, of like the breastfeeding moms versus the formula moms versus, and it's just such a weird, toxic ecosystem, and I became very interested in it. And then I got interested in cows and trauma and the ways that we take babies away from moms to have milk. And so that's what the book's about.
Oh my God, yes. I was going to ask you about breastfeeding, and then it sounds like I need to just have you back when that book comes out.
Yeah, well, I'll just say this. My child is like closing in on 4 years old and still nurses. So that's who I am.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I thought I would be, but it's just, I just decided I wanted to let her choose when she's done, and she hasn't been done yet.
Oh my God, amazing. Well, I can't wait to read Milk. I loved Brutalities, and thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was so fun to talk to you.
That was epic. Thank you again to Margo. You are a treat, and I can't wait to have you back to talk about milk. Oh my God, that sounds Right up my alley. Just cannot wait to read. And thank you for tuning into this episode of Private Parts Unknown. Stay tuned right here because I have got another sexy episode coming your way next week. For the latest episodes, look down and make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast player now. If you are listening on Spotify, it's like a follow and like a bell button. On most platforms, it's like a follow or a subscribe. And to stay in touch between episodes, follow me at Courtney Kosak, that is Kocaak, on Instagram and Twitter. And follow the show at Private Parts Unknown on Instagram and at Private Parts Un on Twitter. And hey, baby, I am shamelessly trying to hit the top 1% on OnlyFans always and forever. So if you are interested in a Playboy-style peek behind the podcast, you can subscribe to my OnlyFans account. It is onlyfans.com/CocoPeepShow. Again, onlyfans.com/CocoPeepShow. It is a very horny way to help support the show. And so I very much appreciate everyone who joins me over on onlyfans.com/CocoPeepShow. And of course, subscribe to our newsletter, and that is privatepartsunknown.substack.com. There is a link for that in the episode description. And subscribe to the Private Parts Unknown YouTube channel for the video version of a bunch of episodes. You can also listen to the podcast, like the static audio version, over on YouTube now. And it is youtube.com/privatepartsunknown. Super simple. It's just youtube.com/privatepartsunknown, and hit subscribe because it really helps us out in the algorithm. And check out my other podcasts for more of my audio creations. I have The Bleeders about book writing and publishing, and Podcast Bestie, which is a best friend to podcasters trying to grow and monetize their shows. And heads up, if I have any writers in the house, I have something very exciting that I am about to launch. It is called Midsummer Pitch Party. If you want to land some dream bylines and really hone in on your writing practice, I have got the thing for you. It is going on all of July. It's going to be amazing. It's really, I created the writing class of my dreams. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to teach. I have been teaching for years, but this is brand new and I'm so freaking excited about it. And you can actually find out all the details on my website. It is CourtneyKosak.com/teaching. Again, CourtneyKosak.com/teaching. And I even have a coupon code for you, which is PRIVATE. So if you use the code PRIVATE over at CourtneyKosak.com/teaching for Midsummer Pitch Party, you will get a freaking $100 off. Huge. That's huge. And so basically, for like the price of a burrito bowl every day in July, you could have an amazing writing dominatrix. Moi, yours truly. Just whipping you along, and it could be so awesome for both of us. So again, one more time, if you are interested, head on over to CourtneyKosak.com/teaching. Shout out to Amy Rausch for the bomb-ass theme music. For more info about Amy and her music, check out amyrausch.com. That's Amy, RAASCH.com. This episode was mixed by my beloved audio guy, Michael Castaneda of Plastic Audio. And after enjoying this content, could we ask you for a quick favor? Just go to ratethispodcast.com/private and give us a 5-star rating and review. You guys, we really super duper need your help because we have these rating and review goals. Like on Spotify, our goal is to get to 145 ratings, and we are just stuck on 142. So if 3 of you who are listening on Spotify could go to that little 3-dot hamburger sign, go to rate show, and then click all 5 stars, that would be so amazing. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we are stuck on 285 for ratings over there. We have had 285 forever, seriously, like over a month now, and we are trying to get to 290. So if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, give us that 5-star rating and review. Please, please, please. No matter where you are listening, you can help us out by giving us a rating and review. You just go to ratethispodcast.com/private. Oh, and there is one more way you can help support the show. We are now on the Fountain app, so if you are listening on Fountain or another V4V platform and you get value from this show, you can support us by sending a boostagram, and you can even send a comment along with your boost. And I have to say, those are my favorite messages to get because they come with a little bit of Bitcoin. Thank you so much for sticking with me until the end. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Love you, privates.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.